Fourth grade lesson 9.6 is adding fractional parts of tens and hundreds, putting things together again. Here we go. Our essential question is, how can you add fractions when the denominators are 10 or 100? Let's unlock the problem. The fourth grade classes are painting designs on tile squares to make a mural. This is a mural with each person doing a portion of the painting. Mrs. Kirk's class painted 3/10, 3 out of 10 of the mural. And Mr. Becker's class painted 21/100ths of the mural. What part of the mural is painted? Well, we know how to add fractions with parts that are the same size, but this is not the same size. This one's in tenths, and this one's split into hundredths. Not the same size. You can use equivalent fractions to add fractions with parts that are not the same size. So we can use what we've learned to manipulate those fractions and get them all cut into the same size pieces. And we're really only dealing with tenths and hundredths. So they're multiples that go by 10. And so we can use that to our advantage. So they want us to find 3/10 plus 21/100ths. I can't add together these fractions if they're cut into different pieces. So I do need to get that common denominator. We're going to write 3/10 and 21/100ths as pair of fractions with a common denominator. Well, we learned common denominators. We count by both numbers and see where they match up. But I already know that 10 times 10 equals 100. So I can get that 10 to become a 100. So that's what we're going to do to that fraction. We're going to do 10 times 10 to get the denominator to 100. So it matches that one. Whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator as well. 3 times 10 is 30. So now I have this fraction, 31/100ths, equivalent from 3/10, right? We just cut it up into more pieces. So now that I have that, I can add it to the 21/100ths. Their denominators are now the same, so I'm able to get the green light to add the numerators together. 30 plus 21 is 51. So 51/100ths of the mural is painted. So all we have to do is use our skills. If we need to put together fractions, add together fractions with different denominators, we just need to use our skills of equivalent fractions, get that common denominator, and then we can add them together. Try this. Find 4/100ths plus 1/10. Again, I can't just add these up. I can't say 4 plus 1 is 5 and 100 plus 10 is 110. It does not work, unfortunately. We have to have the pizza cut up into the same size pieces. This is cut into hundredths, so this needs to be cut into hundredths. And I can easily make that 100 by multiplying by 10. So that's what they're doing here. 1/10 equals 1/10. 1/10 equals, we have 1/10, denominator is 10, and I wish for it to be 100, so I would do 10 times 10 to force that to happen because I am the puppet master of these numbers, and I can do that. 10 times 10 is 100. Whatever I do to my denominator, I must do to my numerator to keep it equivalent. 1 times 10 is 10, and so I had initially this 4/100ths plus 1/10, and now I know that 1/10 is the same as 10/100, so that's here. And I had the 4/100ths to start with. So now when I add those together, 4 plus 10 is going to be 14. That denominator was the same. That's why I went ahead with adding the numerator. 14/100ths would be the answer to this one. Let's look at example 2. We're adding decimals now. Sean lives 0.5 miles or 5/10 mile from the store. The store is 25/100ths mile from his grandmother's house. Sean is going to walk to the store and then to his grandmother's house. How far will he walk? So he's going to the store. How far will he walk? He's going to the store, which is 0.5 or 5/10 of a mile away. I'll draw his house. He goes to the store. 0.5 miles or 5/10 of a mile. And then the store is 0.25, I'm assuming the other direction because they kind of want it all together, to Grandma's house. 25/100ths of a mile to Grandma's house. How far does he go? You notice that what we're going to be doing is adding together the 0.5 or 5/10 of a mile to the 25/100ths of a mile, or 0.25 miles. We add those together. If we want to put them as fractions, we would have 5/10. That's written as 5. Oopsie, let's do a better color. 5/10. And then this number as a fraction is 25/100ths. And I need so we're going to do 5/10 plus 25/100ths here. What I need, though, is for my denominators to be the same. Very easy and quick adjustment to make here, because 5/10, if I multiply the denominator by 10, I end up getting 100, and as long as I do the same to my numerator, then I keep it equivalent. 5 times 10 is 50. So 5/10 is the same as 50/100. So if I'm really doing 5/10 plus 25/100, I really would write it as 50/100 now instead of 5/10 plus 25/100. And now I have the same denominator. I can add those numerators together. 50 plus 25, think of money, right? 75/100. And 75/100 is 0.75. So he walked 0.75 miles. By the way, just a peek at decimal addition. As long as you line up your place values, if I wanted to add 0.5 or 5/10 and 0.25 or 25/100, just make sure your tenths place are lined up with your tenths place, and your decimals lined up with your decimals, and your ones are lined up with your ones place. So then you can just add it together. 0 plus 5, 5, 5 plus 2, 7, and 0 plus 0, 0, and we end up with the same thing. Because these are all the same numbers, these decimals are the same as these, just written in a different way. They're the same values. Let's try this one. We have 0.25 or 25/100 plus 4/10 or 40/100. Let's call that 40/100 and have it written that way, because as we write it as fractions, that's 25/100 plus 40/100. My denominators are already the same. I don't have to manipulate anything. Then I just add my numerators together. 40 plus 25. Either way I go, commutative property of addition says it doesn't matter which order I go in. 5 plus 0 is 5. 2 plus 4 is 6. Is 65/100. So 65/100 as a decimal can be written as 65/100. Ends in the hundredths place. 0.65. If I did that as fractions, that's how it would look. If I chose to add the decimals, which you'll learn later, is just, or now actually, just make sure everything is lined up. You have your hundredths place must line up with your hundredths place. Tenths place must line up with tenths place. Decimals must line up with decimals. Nice and neat about it. Add them together. Ta-da. Let's practice a few and see how we do, because that's the lesson. But let's practice a few, make sure we're getting it okay. I have this 7/10 plus 5/100. Cannot add them together yet. I do not have them cut up the same way I do not have a common denominator. I can make this 7/10 become a denominator of 100, though, so that it matches this one, by multiplying by 10. That would give me the 100 that I need it to be. And if I do the denominator multiplied by 10, I must do the numerator multiplied by 10. 7 times 10 is 70. This one already had the denominator of 100, so I don't need to do anything to him. So I don't need to do anything to his best friend either. Add your numerators together. 70 plus 5 is 75. The denominator remains the same. There's your answer to that one. Let's find the sum for 1/10 plus 11/100. Again, I cannot add these together yet. They are not a common denominator. I easily can make this 10 become a 100 by multiplying by 10. And if I do that to my denominator, I must do that to my numerator to keep it equivalent. So what I'm going to end up with is 10, because 1 times 10 is 10, 100, because 10 times 10 is 100, plus this 11/100, which is already denominator of 100, so I don't need to do anything to that. Now my denominators are the same, so now I can add these together. 10 plus 11 is 21/100. Okay, next one. Feel free to pause and try this one. Okay, so I have 36 hundredths plus 5 tenths. I cannot add them together. That is not a common denominator. I must have a common denominator in order to add or subtract fractions. So I can make this 10 become 100 though pretty easily by just multiplying by 10. Whatever I do to the denominator, I must do to the numerator as well. So this is going to end up being 10 times 10 is 100, 5 times 10 is 50. And I'm adding it to this 36 100ths. Now my denominators are the same, so I can go ahead and add my numerators. 36 plus 50, 86 I believe, but I'm going to do it just to check. 6, 3, and 5 is 8. Yes, 86 100ths is the answer to that one. How did you do? Hopefully you got it. If not, hopefully you know where your error was made. It's okay to make errors. Now let's look at the decimal ones. I'm going to do it both ways, and probably you should too, just to make sure you are competent and able to do both styles, both ways, if you're feeling like the decimal part makes sense. More important, in this lesson, they're wanting you to get comfortable with the fraction part, so do the fraction part for sure, but if you want to try adding as decimals, go ahead. I have 16 hundredths that I'm adding to 45 hundredths. As a fraction, that is 16 hundredths that I'm adding to 45 hundredths. Well, looky there. This is 16 ending in the hundredths place, 45 ending in the hundredths place. Already common denominator, so I just need to add those 16 plus 45. And that's going to give me 4, 5, 6, 61 hundredths. If you wanted to try just simply adding these decimals, it'll work as long as you line up all your decimals and your place values, 0.16 ending in the hundredths place, 0.45 ending in the hundredths place. And when I add those together, 4, 5, 6, I get 0.61 or 61 hundredths. Same number, same amount, written in two different styles. Okay, last one. Feel free to pause it, try it, and then play. Okay, this is 8, but ending in the hundredths place, so that is 8 hundredths. And we're adding it to 88 that ends in the hundredths place, or 88 hundredths. So my denominators are already the same. How nicey nice for us. We can add those numerators together. 88 plus 8. This is going to be 16 and 9. 96 hundredths. Almost a whole thing. It's 96, almost 100. It's almost a whole thing. That is the answer to that one. 96 hundredths. We can write that as a decimal 96 hundredths. If you wanted to practice the addition with the decimals just to kind of get a head start for later, we would just take those two numbers, 0.08 or 8 hundredths, add it to 88 hundredths. Make sure all of your place values line up. 8 plus 8 is 16. 8 plus 0 is 8 plus 1 is 9. Decimals come down, 0 plus 0, and this 0.96, same thing. Comes out to the same thing because these are the same numbers, just written in different ways. These are the same numbers, just written in different ways. I hope that this all made sense to you. I hope you're ready to take on Think Central. If you need more practice, I am here for you.